I don't block my E2, but it's low. I use 200 milligrams test with no AI. Why is my E2 low? Okay, so when we're saying low, it's how low. So this is how estradiol measurements work. Is people saying, well, how come Danny, you're always talking about not needing to measure it, but here you are measuring it on a guy that's low, as an example. Okay. Estradiol gets made in the tissue. Okay. So testosterone binds to sex hormone binding globulin, the protein, sex hormone binding globulin, and I keep saying enzyme in past videos. I'm really sorry. It's a protein. It binds to that protein and it helps circulate it throughout the body and delivers it into the target tissue. Okay. So when it's delivered into the target tissue, it is still testosterone. Then it gets unbound, that testosterone becomes free, bioactive, available testosterone. A small amount of that will convert into estradiol within the tissue, okay? So think of the tissue as think of it as a container, a closed container, and we're putting some testosterone inside, and some of that is going to convert into estradiol, okay? Now think of every single other area in your body as a different container, okay? There's a container for your brain, there's a container for your heart, there's a container for lungs, there's a container for muscles, for bones, for organs, whatever. There's all of these different sized containers with different amounts of estradiol, okay? So when you are taking an AI, because you're saying, oh, my number is high, not realizing that estradiol goes up when you raise testosterone, I want to lower my number for whatever the reason, you have to ask yourself, well, if I'm looking at it as all of these containers, right? And all I'm getting is a tiny little bit that seeps out of each of these containers that seeps back into the bloodstream. So I'm going to measure that, right? So I measure this. There is no way for me to know what's inside of each of these containers, okay? I'm just seeing what little bit that's leaked. So if your E2 is, 30, 40, 50, 60 and above, all this means, all this demonstrates is that your body is making estradiol, and some of it is leaking into the serum, and we can measure that there's some estradiol in the serum, okay? Because we can measure that there's estradiol in the serum, it means you don't have a deficiency. You have estradiol somewhere in these containers because we can see that a little bit of it is leaking out. But there's no way for us to tell how much is in these containers, okay? So if I say, well, I'm going to take an AI to block the conversion or lower the conversion of estradiol, you have to say, okay, well, which container exactly do I want it lowered in? Because maybe the one for the brain is like really, really, really small, and there's only a little bit of estradiol. And if you block the conversion in there, that might be a problem. Maybe there's an issue going on in the heart. The heart's trying to produce estradiol because it's protective, and you're preventing the heart from creating more estradiol. That's a problem. So ask yourself, when you want to take an AI, where in the body do you want to block it? Because people just think, well, I want to block it or manage it or lower it uniformly. It doesn't work that way. Every single area of the body is going to have different levels of estradiol, different levels of aromatase. So if you're going to block the action of aromatase, you don't really know what effect it's going to have and where in the body. You might be blocking in areas that you don't necessarily want it to be blocked, okay? Now, for some guys, they can be on a decent amount of testosterone, like this guy, Ollie DTV, he was on 200 milligrams a week. Now, I'm not sure if he's injecting once a week or twice a week or whatever else, but typically a guy who injects 200 milligrams even once a week, by the end of the week, he still has half decent amount of testosterone and estradiol. Now, if he's measuring very, very, very little estradiol on a dose like that, and typically that type of dose for most guys, 200 milligrams a week will get them at least 1,100, 1,200 total. So if he's got 1,100, 1,200 total, but his E2 is like, 12 or 10 or 8, all that basically means is we are not seeing much estradiol leaking out from these containers, from the tissue, back into the serum, which basically tell us there's likely very little of it in the body. Okay, so this could imply that there may be an aromatase deficiency. Okay, so it's an absence or lack of sufficient aromatase to convert enough testosterone into estradiol. Okay, so we measure it if we suspect a deficiency. If we measure it and there's almost none there, it means that this person may actually benefit from using exogenous estradiol to bring his estradiol levels up to something that makes sense in relation to his total and free testosterone levels, okay? Now, if like again, if somebody has ample levels of it and you measure, we just stop measuring because we say you clearly don't have an aromatase deficiency. Aromatase is self-regulating, so we forget about it now. It becomes a non-issue.
This video was sponsored by online pharmacy NP Labs. Use the link in the description to get a 5% discount on your first order. It's where I get my compounded testosterone cream, pregnenolone, DHEA, tadalafil, peptides and much more.